Hey everybody, T-Man again, bringing you guys another video, and this video is a video I really want to do here and give my opinion on, and that is about, this is really a discussion video, and this is going to be pretty much about the whole Triple H podcast with Chyna, and Vince Russo not really getting involved, but giving Chyna, Johnny Lawler, a format to voice her opinion about what Triple H said on this Austin podcast. I want to give my opinion on all of it and make this really a discussion video. And I've never really gave my opinion or what I think of Vince Russo. So I kind of want to make this video, all of it together. I'm going to start off by talking about Vince Russo, which I never got the chance to do, what I think about him, the perception of him, and also leading into this interview that he had with Chyna, when Chyna said some things about Triple H. Are they true? Are they not? Let's go ahead and let's talk about all that. First, let's go ahead and let's talk about Vince Russo. As many of you know, I was always a huge WCW fan, you know, and back in the Monday Night Wars, if those of you who watch my video know that I was never in a position where I had to choose between the two brands. You know, with my cable provider, I've said this in a video before, I was able to watch both WCW Monday Nitro and WWF Monday Night Raw without flipping back and forth, because here on the West Coast where I live in LA, and the cable provider I had at the time, I was able to watch Nitro at 5 p.m. here on the West Coast, and then Raw started at 9, so I even had a little chance where I could eat dinner afterwards and whatever. So, talking about Vince Russo, when he came in 1999, you know, first of all, I was a teenager at the time. I was a preteen actually, excuse me, in middle school, and you know, I remember the change of tone when Vince Russo came in. At the time, like at the end of '99, I think his first pay-per-view was Halloween Havoc 1999. You know, I could tell that there was a change of writing and all that, and let me tell you something, it wasn't for bad. It was something fresh when I first started watching, and the thing, you know, I've watched so many of shoot interviews with Vince Russo and him going on people's podcasts and stuff, and there's been some really good ones, but the one thing I can't stand is when they just throw crazy allegations at the guy, or really anybody. That's not true. You know, I always hear people say, "Oh, Vince Russo killed WCW. Vince Russo did this. Vince Russo did that." And I remember I was just watching one recently, and the recent one on Wrestle Talk TV. I watched them. I'm not bashing anybody here on this video, but man, what a horrendous interview that was. Like, this guy, this English guy, was so determined to get Vince Russo to say, to take blame, at least 6%. The first part of that video I saw, at least 6% blame of why WCW went out of business. And I've seen so many videos like that, where to the point where I heard on Vince Russo's, one of his YouTube videos that I do watch, where he said, you know, I'm not going to talk about WCW anymore. I'm tired of defending myself. And I don't blame the man. I mean, the man shouldn't have to defend himself. I mean, first of all, I mean, it's proven fact that when Vince Russo came over to WCW, that shit was dead already. That shit was dead. That shit had cancer probably from like 96 when the NWO started. Even though that was their highest time in that organization during that NWO angle, WCW never built talent. I mean, they never built anybody. I mean, that's why your Jerichos and your Benoits and all those guys went over to the WWF, because they weren't getting built in WCW, because WCW never built any stars. And, you know, a lot of that was, you know, creative control from guys like Hogan and all those other guys. But, you know, WCW never built that never built for the future ever. And you know, now we're getting to the point here in '99, towards the end of '99, when Vince Russo came. You know, he came at a point where the fans were kind of getting tired of seeing all the, not really the old guys, the legends are always legends, but they're doing the same matches over and over. I mean, in mid-'99, you still had Hulk Hogan and Ric Flair main eventing pay-per-views. You know, in 1999, and I love those guys. Those guys are legends of the business. But in '99, at that point, they needed to move on. I mean, at that point, the NWO was pretty much done, and you had all this stuff going on. I mean, it was set. I mean, it was pretty much dead. I mean, when you cannot build for the future, your organization's dead. And not to mention with the politics and everything, I don't know, every little thing that went on with WCW. WCW was never organized. So when Vince Russo came, it was already dead. Okay, it was already dead. There was no one really in charge. You had all these people putting in things. So when Vince Russo came, he came in, what I believe with all the interviews, I could be wrong, he came in and he knew, and I even heard in a recent video, that he had to take, he even said in his words, that he had to take each brick down and rebuild it. That doesn't happen overnight. And I agree with that. And really, what I saw from that October '99, on those 3 months where he had control, I saw a change that I liked in '99. I could remember that as a kid, seeing something fresh, seeing new faces getting pushes that usually wouldn't get pushes. And, you know, God, too bad I can't, you know, I'm a nobody, okay? I do these videos. I just started this channel. I'm trying to grow this channel. I don't get paid for these videos or nothing. I just give my opinion on the sport that I've been watching for 25 years. I'm 29 years old. I just turned 29 a couple weeks ago. I do these videos to give my opinion on the sport that I've been watching since I was 4 years old with my grandfather. Okay, so I'm not getting anything out of this or nothing. But man, I wish I could talk to Vince Russo and kind of have a podcast and discuss with this man and really get some real questions. And you know, it's sad that he says that he would never talk about WCW again, because I have some real good intelligent questions. You know, not, oh, how did the company use so much millions of dollars or whatever? This guy came in as a creative storyline writer, okay? I mean, he didn't kill the company. I mean, did everything he do in WCW was gold? I mean, I'm tired of hearing like the David Arquette. You know, he let David Arquette win the stop all that, okay? It's a form of entertainment. Do I agree that he should have been the champion? I mean, it wasn't like he was champion for a few months. I understand where he was coming off of that with the David Arquette, because at that point nobody was watching WCW. He had to go out there and he had to get outside viewers. Do I agree with it, me as a diehard wrestling fan? Of course not. But you know, I understand what he's trying to do. He's trying to get outside eyeballs to watch. I understand that. I wouldn't ask stupid questions. Oh, excuse me, guys. Sorry. Unprofessional of me. But I would ask some really intelligent questions about WCW. I mean, I would ask, first of all, what he wanted to do, okay? We know from October to the end of December '99, you know, he was doing his things, and then he kept getting pulled out of it, and then ratings were going up. It was a proven fact. I have looked at the numbers of the ratings because I've done my WCW history, because I was such a big fan of it. So in my adulthood, I've read every single book on the death of WCW. I've looked online and seen what their ratings was. And when Vince Russo was writing the show at the beginning, he's got the numbers up. Okay, I'm not praising Vince Russo. I don't know Vince Russo. I'm just stating the fact that he was starting to build up the show. WCW was getting impatient because things weren't happening overnight, and they're not. When you're doing things for so long and never building talent, never building anything, it's going to take overnight. It's like building an organization overnight, rebuilding it. It still has that WCW name on it, but essentially you're building a new brand. I understood that. Even as I'm not going to curse. I usually do, but I'm trying to make some videos PG here. But you got to, you know, I understand what they were doing. Okay, I understand what Vince and Ed Ferrara and stuff were doing. They were rebuilding the brand, and that doesn't take overnight. Okay, it doesn't. It's like starting from scratch just with the WCW name. Okay, but what I would like to ask him, man, what I would like to ask this guy is, what storylines was he never able to do that he wanted to do that he might think would have, not really save WCW, but really put it on the map, and storylines don't happen overnight. You have to build the storyline. You have to do all that other thing, and then not to mention, then when Bischoff, you remember when they put Bischoff and Vince Russo together? Okay, at this point, they brought Russo and Bischoff together to work together. Here's another thing I would like to ask Russo. What did Bischoff contribute? What did Bischoff want to do when they were working together? Did he have any plans? Did Bischoff turn down the plans that he wanted to do? And not to mention, what superstars did he want to build that maybe a lot of people say, no, we can't build as superstars? What storylines did he want to do that get shot down? There is so many. I mean, if I ever had the opportunity to interview this guy or just talk to this man, I would write down some intelligent questions, not, how did you lose the money? Why did you do David Arquette? Why did you do that? That's unfair to a man who was brought in a creative control role, not creative control, as a booking role to try to improve the company. And, I get very upset too with, and then this is not with Vince Russo. I'm not, saying, I hate Vince Russo. I'm a big Vince Russo guy. I'm just stating the facts of what I saw and what I've read when I've read the history of WCW and WWF. And not to mention, I knew the name Vince Russo from when I was a little boy. A lot of you may not know, but I learned how to read as a child from the WWF magazine when I was a kid, when I was 5, 6 years old and whatever. And that's really how I learned how to read big words and big stories or whatever. I mean, at first, I started off reading, just looking at the pictures like most kids do. Because like I said, I started watching wrestling since I was 4. And then when I started learning how to read, I'm starting to read it. Suplex, body slam. And then I started reading all this stuff. And I remember as a kid, I cannot give exact age, reading articles from Vince Russo. And I mean, I didn't know until I was an adult that he was a big part of the Attitude Era. And I think it's really sad that, they don't give, WWF has never, or WWE now, has never gave anybody props, especially if they're not with the company. And this has nothing to do with Vince Russo. This could be anybody. If you're not with the company anymore, it's true. They don't give them the props. And I mean, Vince Russo and Ed Ferrara and all these guys, they pitched an idea to WWF, this Attitude Era, okay? Maybe at the time it wasn't labeled Attitude Era, that just kind of grew off themselves, but storylines and stuff that they would want to see. And, they continued with that, with great writing and great all this. And it's another proven fact too. I mean, think about it. After Vince Russo left in 1999, when he left and moved over to WCW, WWF was still good for a few years, and of course they would still be good for a few years because it was pretty much impossible to screw up at that point. He had Austin, he had Rock, Triple H. He had these guys that were so good. It's impossible to screw up, and you pretty much have the formula to continue off of those storylines that Vince Russo and Ed Ferrara gave you, and just leave that in for a couple years. I mean, you'll be a moron to screw that up. And Vince McMahon is not a moron. He is a smart guy. And then if you think about it, then in 2001, 2002, you still can't screw up because now you're getting all the talent from WCW. Even though they did that invasion storyline completely wrong, they botched it up completely, they were still successful. Then we move on to 2003, 2004, 2005. In my opinion, that's when it started slacking. And I'm not saying it's because they didn't have, storyline writers like Vince Russo or Ed Ferrara. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, yes, Vince McMahon is a genius, but Vince McMahon is, he's not. a superstar writer like people think. He's not. You know, he needs to get pitched ideas, and then once when he has an idea on paper, he can tweak it. That's what Vince McMahon is. And, I mean, that's why there was a good period of time, in my opinion, 2009, 10, 11, 12, where it just completely sucked and whatever, because now they have, I'm not bashing the storyline writers they have today, but today you got storyline writers. I read one of the storyline writers they have is a person that worked on Ugly Betty. What? I mean, I'm not bashing that guy. I'm not bashing that show. But what does a person that's writing for Ugly Betty know about professional wrestling? You know, it's like, holy mackerel. I understand it's entertainment. And then now when you're watching today, they're not focusing for a specific demographic. Even Triple H said before in his podcast. They're shooting for kids, adults, teenagers. They're shooting all over the place. And so when you watch the program, it's a 3-hour clusterfuck. It really is. So anyways, that's what I think of Vince Russo. I wish I had the format to talk to him and just get some, you know, some answers, questions, some questions answered. Excuse me, I got a little bit tongue-tied. You know, I would love to have a opportunity where I could write down some questions and get them answered, and some intelligent questions that, you know, nobody never asks. Everyone's always about burying the guy or having somebody, and this not just to Vince Russo, to anybody. Everybody always wants to bury each other or take responsibility for this. I mean, geez, man. I mean, seriously. Anyways, my opinion of him, I don't think he killed WCW at all. If anything, I would have liked to see what would have happened if they gave him the opportunity. Now, moving on to the main event here, I do want to, you know me, I like to keep my videos kind of short. This one will probably run close to a half hour, but is about Chyna, the big interview here with Chyna. If you guys don't know what I'm talking about, Chyna went on to the Vince Russo's website, his podcast on Pyro and Ballyhoo, which I do check out the website, and I read some of the articles and some of the videos there. And gave Chyna a format, because pretty much what Triple H said on the Austin podcast that made Vince Russo want to get in contact with Chyna is, I mean, Triple H was asked by Stone Cold Steve Austin if Chyna would ever go into the WWE Hall of Fame, and Triple H said, you know, never say never, gave a kind of a corporate answer, and then says, well, does she deserve to, you know, wrestling-wise, performance-wise? Yes, absolutely, she deserves to be in there, but it's not as clear as day to just say, okay, yeah, she deserves to be in there, let's be her in there. I have an 8-year-old, I'm paraphrasing here, you know, what if my 8-year-old goes on there, or any child goes on there, Googles the name Chyna, and reads that, it looks her up, and pretty much referring to Chyna's days in the adult industry where she went into pornography. I do agree with Chyna and why Chyna would be upset with that, and with Vince Russo. I mean, it's really unfair for and I'm a big Triple H fan. It is unfair for Triple H to say that. I mean, I don't think he should have said that. I first of all, I'm not Chyna. I don't think that hurts Chyna, because everybody knows. I mean, everybody knows about that. And really, I mean, you could look up anybody. Everybody has dirty laundry, especially with cell phones and stuff today. And I really liked what Russo tweeted on Twitter when he says, "Oh boy, whatever, something." I'm paraphrasing again. What about Seth Rollins? 8-year-olds don't Google Seth Rollins, which I thought was really funny, referring to Seth Rollins' cell phone hack, where, you know, there's nude pictures out there now of Seth Rollins. I think that was a mistake of Triple H to say. I mean, everyone has dirty laundry. I mean, if he wanted to say or refer something like pornography, just say, you know, right now we're in the PG era, but never say never. You know, maybe eventually there'll come a time or something. I mean, give something, and, you know, or I mean, I can understand him not saying, well, guess what? my wife won't be happy with that. Even though that's probably the God's honest truth, I could understand Triple H trying to come up with a corporate answer. I think that was the wrong answer. Now, to Chyna, what she said, the allegations and stuff that she said about Triple H with the relationship, about her referring to Triple H beating her and stuff. I mean, the problem when we hear these interviews, and this is my opinion, is, you know, we don't know the whole side of both stories, okay? We don't know. I mean, do I think Chyna was dealt a wrong hand? Absolutely, she was dealt the wrong hand. I mean, did Triple H cheat on Chyna with Stephanie? Most likely. We don't know the truth. We're just hearing one side on one side. And whenever there's a heat like that, you're always going to get two separate stories, okay? But no matter what stories are true, no matter what stories are false, did Chyna get wronged? Yeah, absolutely she got wronged. But do I think that's the, with her not being involved in WWE and stuff, do I think that's the reason Chyna had to go into pornography and alcohol or tampering with drugs? I know that she didn't really have a big drug problem, which that's what a lot of people say, is, but do I think all that happened? No. I mean, I think everybody makes mistakes in life, and was she depressed due to that? Most likely, but I don't think Chyna should blame, and I don't think she does, or I hope not, I don't think she does, blame WWE for the road and some of the choices she went on. I mean, I don't know what her position was. I think the name Chyna was strong enough where she could have got pro wrestling gigs in Japan or TNA or other organization. I know when she was in the that one reality show, The Surreal Life, I remember they called her Chyna Doll. Not just Chyna Doll, and that was probably because WWE, I mean, WWE, what they, in my opinion, the thing that they did wrong with her was not letting her use the name Chyna. Because they knew damn well they weren't going to bring her back. Let her go out and use that name. That part, I 100% agree with. But the part where, you know, her kind of blaming, or to me, it kind of seems like, and I'm not burying Chyna, I have a lot of respect for her, to her kind of like blaming, her not working in the industry and having to move to Japan because of this, I think is absurd. I mean, there's so many superstars that got wronged by Vince McMahon and the WWE. It's ridiculous to blame Triple H and all that. I mean, I think that's absurd. I mean, yeah, they screwed her, and sadly WWE screwed a lot of superstars. But saying, you know, the reason why I can't get a mainstream job, I think if she really wanted to work in wrestling or entertainment, she can, you know, using Chyna Doll or maybe a different name, Asia. Actually, I think that was a WCW gimmick name. But, you know, like I said, unfortunately, I mean, that's the problem with bringing up these big stories online and stuff. No one knows the whole truth, and no one ever will. We just hear, you know, parts of stories. You know, that's all we hear. So, you know, I thought it was a very entertaining interview, but I wish we knew more of the story. And, you know, I think Chyna, you know, I do feel bad for her and stuff. And I understand, but I think this really put gasoline on the fire. It really did. But, you know, it was good to hear from Chyna and what she's thinking. You know, I know Triple H has wronged her, and I hope to God that it's not true. With if Triple H laid hands on her, I don't agree on ever laying hands on a woman. But I don't know. I mean, all the stories I ever heard about Triple H as a person says that he's a good person. But people make mistakes. I'm not saying Triple H didn't do that. It's very possible, and I kind of believe her. I don't think she has no reason to lie about her hitting. And another thing I've heard too, I don't know if this is fact, I'm just stating what I've heard and read, was that Chyna really wasn't fired from the WWE. She because, I mean, she was still around in 2001 when, you know, Stephanie and Triple H were really already together. And I heard that she left the company, she asked for more money and didn't get it. That's just what I heard. And that she kind of wanted out she wanted out herself, which I understand. Why would she want to see an ex that she was very close with, maybe even engaged to? Like I said, I don't know. Why would she want to stick around for that? So I heard she asked for money that they knew WWE would say no to. A high amount where they knew that they would say no to. But who knows? I mean, that podcast kind of made it sound like she was forced out of business and kind of forced all together to move to Japan and all that. Due to all that, I don't think that's the case. But like I said, I don't know. I'm just giving my opinion. I have respect for Chyna, and I think it's miserable. And yeah, I do think WWE screws over a lot of people and give them bad hands and not letting them use their name where they can make a living easily. And they do kind of make cheap jabs at people. And that's the one thing about WWE that I really hate. And it's true that I've heard a lot of people say this. Since we're talking, this video is about Vince Russo and Chyna, especially Vince Russo. I heard him. I'm like, if you're not with the company, it's like, screw you. And that's true. I've heard that story from many past wrestlers that has left WWE, and it's very, very sad. Anyways, that'll conclude the video on Chyna. Hopefully, this situation will pretty much die down, and hopefully, I doubt Triple H will even respond to this. I mean, to that interview with Chyna and Vince Russo. I highly doubt it. But anyways, guys, this video, hopefully now you kind of see, I'm not a Vince Russo hater. I'm not a Vince Russo like, oh yeah, I have a poster on my wall. No, but I do follow. I follow everything wrestling. I read everything. I go on every sites, WrestleZone, Observer, the Wrestle Observer Report, and all that other stuff. Anything online. I watch a lot of reviews. I study the history of wrestling, and I listen to Jim Cornette. I listen to all these guys. I listen to every podcast. I do read all the articles on Vince Russo and all this stuff, and I really wish I had the opportunity to really ask. I mean, you know, I was a big WCW fan. I would love to ask intelligent questions that was never asked before to him, and really get in the mindset of you know, kind of step by step everything that went down, and not bashing someone. I mean, every time I hear I read something on YouTube, Vince Russo discusses WCW or whatever, it's always somebody attacking him or accusing him. Why did it go out? I bet you there was positive angles this guy had, and I'm curious. Hopefully one day I'll have the format or whatever, and I don't know, maybe I'll send this video and maybe I'll make a coup. I know I'm a nobody, I'm just a fan here, but man, I'll send this video to Vince Russo's Twitter, and maybe he'll get it, and maybe I'll get lucky one day and get an interview with this guy. And at the same time, building my channel. Like I said, I do this for fun, guys. I make these videos when my kids are asleep, and it kind of gives me something to do, a hobby. You know, I raise 2 small kids, and it'll give me something to do, building this channel and building this out here, because I like to think that I do. I mean, every fan likes to think they have a mind for the business, but I've been watching it for so long. I watch every single product. I've been watching stuff since the 70s and 80s at my local video store, and I think I really do have a take on the business, you know. But anyways, this is just my way of saying my opinions, and again, these are my opinions. So anyways, guys, to the next video. I'm planning on doing a video soon about the recent NXT special. Phenomenal wrestling that we saw a couple nights ago, just to touch on it briefly. Great wrestling. If you guys haven't seen it, cheap plug for the WWE Network, or actually Hulu too. I heard it's also on Hulu. Check out the NXT special. It was phenomenal. Those young guys are busting ass over there, and every time they have a special, they blow it out of the water. Anyways, until that video, I'll see you for the next one. Bye, guys.